Today, week 2 or session 2 of our series, Love Handles, where we're just trying to get a handle on this thing called love in the context of our relationships. Specifically, we've been looking through the lens of marriage, okay? So spouses here today, we're kind of looking through our lens, but really, no matter where you find yourself in life, all of us are dealing with different kinds of relationships, friends, family, coworkers, boss to employee, employee to boss, neighbors, acquaintances, all these different things. And all of these are just good practices for relationships. We've been trying to hand you some tools. And so we try to give you some practical things. And some of these things deal emotionally. Some of them, we could do whole series on all kinds of this stuff, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all these different things. But we just want to be helpful. And I actually found a couple of helpful things for us as couples. Ladies, for any of you that are Amazon fans, okay, any Amazon fans in the house, okay, don't you love that Amazon, and not just Amazon Prime, okay, they bring stuff, but sometimes our spouses don't understand our need for Amazon. And so I actually found something for you. It's a doormat. They make a doormat, and this is what the doormat says. It says, please hide packages from husband. There's another one that says, please hide packages, help save my marriage. All right, there's one of those. So this is what's cool. A couple of weeks ago, there was a news story where a UPS guy actually tried to be helpful, and he did this. So, you're welcome, right? It's like, hey, I appreciate the effort. And so, ladies, that's out there. If you want to use that, that might help your marriage. Now, guys, I actually didn't, that's kind of silly, but I found a tool that for real, you may need to go get today. I've got 5 on order. I'll share 2 of them, but the other 3 I'm going to need to put at different places in my house. And so men specifically and ladies, you're going to totally acknowledge this when you see it. This product right here, men invest now. It's called the Beard Bib. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? Ladies, have you ever found extra beard laying around that he's no longer using on your counter, in your sink, right? No more. The Beard Bib, the built-in tray table, doubles as an anchor chute for easy hair disposal. Quick, right? Actually, I wish I could say this was my idea. My wife ordered 7 of those for me. And anyway, but like I said, we're just trying to be helpful during this process. We want to give you things, and really not so much products, but good practices, things that you can put into place when it comes to relationships that research has shown the happiest and healthiest marriages say these are huge deals. These are massive factors in our relationship being as healthy and as happy as it is. And all of us want to have healthy, happy relationships, especially when it comes to the relationship of marriage. And so what we've been doing is trying to hand off just a few of these big ideas. And also, I wish any of us could claim that we have ownership in these ideas, but they're not. They're all just God's ideas. He sewed all this stuff together in creation. And actually, in week 1, Josh gave you this incredible foundational idea. And he said, this is one of the things that will help your marriages be the best if you believe the best. If we can just believe the best about one another, that the happiest, healthiest couples tend to believe the best about their mate, even in moments of tension and strife and conflict, that if they believe that their mate doesn't really want to hurt them, it changes or it determines how they behave in response. What we believe determines how we behave, right? If I believe someone has the best for me, even when something doesn't go right, I tend to have grace for them, don't I? Right? I'm like, you know what? I know they didn't mean to do that, so a little bit of grace right here. But if I believe someone wants to do me wrong, they don't even have to try for me to see it, do they? There's like, no, I know what they meant by that. I know how they think, how they act. What we believe determines how we behave. And so as marriage couples, one of the things that we can do to help the health and the happiness of our marriage in the beginning, and even if it's in a point of tension or strife, is we can choose to believe the best. And again, I've talked to people who said, man, we're so far past that. And maybe that's true. But hopefully most of us aren't in any of our relationships. And that we could put that into practice and begin to believe the best. So that was one big idea that we gave you. Now today, I want to give you one more idea, okay? One more idea. And this thing that we're going to talk about today, this has the potential to immediately, okay, you like that word, don't you? We like instant in our culture. But this right here has the potential to immediately improve your relationship with the person whose relationship is most important to you. So think about that, who's most important to you? And this idea that we're going to talk about today has the potential to immediately improve your relationship with the person whose relationship means the most to you. So to get us going there, I want to start by showing you one of The ugliest words in the English language, okay? If you got kids in here, hide their eyes. I'm just kidding. It's not a 4-letter word. It's actually like I can't even count. It's 9 letters. Okay, it's 9 letters. All right, and here it is. Ready? It's this. Ingratitude. Ingratitude. And the reason this is so ugly is because very few things sting in a relationship like ingratitude. The feeling of being unappreciated, right? And you know this, right? You do something for somebody, you serve them, you put yourself out there for them, you sacrifice them, you maybe give birth to them, you raise them, right? Maybe you go as far as to marry them, you do that for them, okay, whatever it is, but you do this for them and you expect something to come back your way. And understandably so, something should. But when it doesn't, it just hurts and it stings and it stinks, right? And ingratitude can come in lots of forms. Ingratitude could be words that aren't said, or it could be words that are said, right? Ingratitude could be behaviors that somebody exhibits, or it can be a lack of behaviors. But either way, it stings. We feel it whenever someone doesn't appreciate us or is ungrateful in terms of our relationships. But here's the interesting thing about ingratitude. You ready? All right, here's one of the interesting things. The recipient of ingratitude is always aware, are we? Right? I mean, if you're in a relationship with someone and they're ungrateful, it's not a mystery to you. You are very, very aware when someone is being ungrateful. But the more interesting thing is maybe this, that the initiator or the ungrateful person is rarely aware. Right? That a lot of times, in fact, the initiator will a lot of times be completely surprised when and if they're accused of ingratitude. If you say, you're so ungrateful, right? Now, I don't know, don't raise your hands, but just in your head, raise your hand in your head. Have any of you ever been accused of being ungrateful for anything? And maybe a better way to ask that question is this. Have any of you in here ever been 13? Right? It's like, then yes, someone has thought, man, they're so ungrateful, okay? Right? But when somebody says this to you, if somebody actually verbalizes this to you, I just feel like you're ungrateful, our first reaction is usually defensive, right? We're like, what? And the reason that it's defensive is because we think they're accusing us of not feeling something. And so immediately we begin to rehearse the thoughts in our head as it pertains to that person or that circumstance. And we begin to think about that person when we think, no, I'm thankful for them. I love them. I'm grateful for them. They do their part. I do my part, right? And so we believe, right, we retreat into these thoughts and we finally respond with, no, I'm grateful. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm grateful because we again think they're accusing us of not feeling something. But the problem is not that we're not feeling something. The problem is that we haven't expressed the thing that we're feeling all the time. And this creates a huge disconnect relationally because the person who's feeling unappreciated, that's really what they feel. And yet, what we feel is complete appreciation, right? We're like, oh man, I am so grateful, but it's just secret. It's like, shh. I'm not telling anybody about it. And so it can totally catch us off guard, right? Things are rolling along. We think they're great. And then all of a sudden somebody pops up and they say, yeah, well, here's the tension. You're just ungrateful. And it just totally blindsides us because we feel like we appreciate them and it becomes this huge mess. And so the reason that we need to talk about this is because ingratitude is almost impossible to see in the mirror, right? In fact, you could spend the rest of your life in this tension of ingratitude and never even know it. And the reason is because it's like a lot of other things that we talk about around here. It's really easy to see in others, isn't it? I can tell you when somebody's being ungrateful to me. Again, the recipient, I'm always aware. I'm even aware on other people's behalf. Man, they're so ungrateful. Right? But the initiator, it's almost impossible to see this in ourselves. And the reason this is so important, especially in our relationships, especially in a relationship like marriage, is because gratitude generates generosity. Gratitude generates generosity, and some of you will know what I mean by this. If you don't, an example is like if you were to serve on a mission trip, or if you were to work maybe with the working poor or with the homeless, and you serve in a shelter or something, and you're just out there pouring yourself into them because you're compelled to it. You're trying to be compassionate, and if you run into someone who is so grateful for that time that you've spent with them, or that whatever that small thing is that you've been able to put in their hands or in their belly or whatever, and they're so grateful, what does it do? It generates more generosity in you, doesn't it? You're like, oh man, can we find more ways to help? When someone's grateful, we want to get even more engaged in what they're doing. And that's how it works relationally. But when someone's ungrateful, right, it begins to shut down our generosity, doesn't it? Right? When someone's ungrateful for some gift that I've done or some service that I've tried to offer, all of a sudden I'm not thinking, man, I want to do more for you. Right? But here's the scary part about ingratitude. It not only shuts down generosity, but it can shut down entire relationships when it comes to the people closest to us. And for some of us in this room, this is your story. Someone close to you was ungrateful. They didn't appreciate you, and it began to shut down not just your generosity, not just your communication, but it began to shut down the entire relationship as well. But chances are, the other person had, or even presently has, no clue. And the reason I know this is because I've counseled people in all kinds of situations, in all kinds of friendships, marriage relationships, dating relationships, with struggle relationships, whatever, tensions, and where this was the central issue because someone already told me, it's like, I just don't feel appreciated. I just don't feel any gratitude. I don't feel, right? And the other person, right, I've never run into someone else who's the initiator of ingratitude, who at some point in the counseling went, hey, you know what? I pinpointed it. I'm just ungrateful. I'm ungrateful. We can go now. I can fix it, right? I realize what I've been doing. I'm ungrateful. I'll fix it. And the reason that it's so tough is because it's almost impossible to see in the mirror in ourselves. It's easy to see in others, hard to see in ourselves. But the truth is that in this room today right here, this idea could be at the very heart of your relational struggles. Whether that's struggles at work with a boss or an employee, whether that's at home with your kids, right? Or students, whether that's at home with your parents, or for some of us with our friends, okay? Maybe we were like, we're giving, and they're just taking, right? Or maybe they're going, I'm giving, they're taking, and they're looking at us, right? And for a lot of us, it may even be happening with our spouse. So that's why I want to talk about this today, because ingratitude is such a powerful idea, and it could be the key component to the survival or the destruction of the relationships that matter the most to the most of us, right? So, and sometimes we can't even see it. So if you got your Bible, we're going to look at a story in Luke chapter 17. And in this story, Jesus is going to ask a series of questions, okay? And these three little questions he's going to ask, they're going to take us right to the heart of the tension of this idea between gratitude and ingratitude. And this is a story that when we start going, some of you are going to recognize it immediately, but most often you'll probably recognize it because you either shared it with your kids or you heard it shared with some kids, you heard it in a children's sermon or a Bible school one time, because it's a lesson that we want all of our kids to get, but there's something in it, maybe even just a little bit deeper, that we can grab onto as adults that may be the difference in a breakthrough for some of our relationships, or if we don't choose to embrace it, may be the reason that relationship breaks down. So there's a little story, Luke chapter 17, I'm going to kind of walk you through it. It starts this right here, Luke 17, verse 11. Jesus and his boys walking around. All right, this is what it says. Now, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. Okay, so Jesus is traveling, to give you kind of a picture, Samaria's way up, or Galilee's way up north, Judea, Jerusalem, where he's going his way down south, and Samaria is kind of right here in the middle. And so to get from one place to the other, he has to kind of go along the border of Samaria. And there's some tension even right there, because Samaritans and Jews, they don't like each other, because the Jews think the Samaritans are doing a knockoff Jewish religion, and the Samaritans hate the Jews because the Jews look down on Samaritans. So there's all kinds of tension already in this story. But Jesus and his guys are walking along the border, and it goes on. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. All right. Now, the deal with leprosy, in our time, leprosy has actually been cured. I don't know if you knew that or not. Leprosy in our time has been cured. In fact, in the last 20 years, 16 million people have been cured of leprosy. Isn't that incredible? 16 million people cured. But in this day and age, there was no cure for leprosy. So people were scared to death. And here's the other thing. They thought that leprosy was highly contagious, that it was passed from person to person. Now, that's not how, it's not just passed just through random contact, but this is what they believed. So people who had leprosy were put in these kind of colonies, and they were sent to live outside of the community. They were total outcasts. They couldn't have contact with their family, with their children. They couldn't work anywhere in the community, and they couldn't even have religious contact. They couldn't go to temple because they were considered totally unclean. So they were just these outcasts on the edge of town. They actually even had to yell, like when people got close, they had to be like, lepers, lepers over here, lepers, right? They had to carry a bell and ring it like, bing, 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 we're the lepers, okay? I mean, they had all these different rules about these guys. So these 10 men, because what would happen is these groups of people, they would find each other and they would set up little communities of their own. And these 10 men, they're living outside the village and they see Jesus. And so they stand at a distance because that's the law, all right? And then this is what happens next in the story. Luke says, they stood at a distance and they called out in a loud voice. Actually, they yelled, okay, because that's the rule. So they're yelling, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Now, generally when you're reading through the Gospels, in a situation like this, Jesus would go over to the sick person, he would lay his hands on them, and he would just heal them. But in this particular instance, Jesus does something seemingly unusual. And here's what he does. Jesus yells back. This is fantastic. He yells back at them. And here's what he says. When he saw them, he said, go and show yourselves to the priest. Right? And guys are kind of looking at each other and it's like, did he say something about a feast? And Jesus is like, no, go and show yourselves to the priest. Right? And so Jesus is yelling at them. Now, there's a lot of drama going on in this one little statement right here that they would have picked up on, but that we possibly don't know about. And so the first part of the little bit of drama that happens right here in this statement when Jesus yells at them is this. If a person had a disease that caused them to be outcast, okay, before they could come back into the community, they had to go to a priest and kind of get their wellness card checked off by him. He had to say, yes, you were sick, I get it, but now it looks like everything is cleared up, you're healed. And so they had to go to the priest of that town, show themselves to the priest to get a clear bill of health. He checks them out, says, say, right? And he says, you are good to go, welcome back into society. So it was the law that once you were healed, you had to go to the priest. Now, the second thing that's happening here is this. Jesus yells at them, go show yourselves to the priest, right? They're not healed yet. And you'll know why in a minute. I mean, you'll understand that in the story, in the context in a minute. But they're not healed yet when Jesus gives them these instructions. And we don't know where the closest priest is. If the closest priest is, in fact, in Jerusalem, that could be a 2 or 3 day journey. So this is a big decision that they have to make. The 10 of them, in order to do what Jesus is asking them to do, this would require an extraordinary expression of faith in this person, Jesus, because right now when they look at themselves, they still have leprosy. So there's a lot going on right here. So these guys, they look around each other and they're like, hey, what do you want to do? What do you think we should do? When's the last time you saw your family? It's been like 8 years. I mean, you seen your family? I've been here like 15 years. I was here when you got here, right? And so they're just kind of going back and forth with one another. But finally they say, hey, you know what? We got leprosy. What do we got to lose, right? I mean, we didn't get that close, but I think it was Jesus, right? I think I'm pretty sure it was Jesus. And he yelled. And so let's go. And so these guys take off to go wherever the closest priest was. And we don't know if this was hours away or days away. We don't have any idea. But then Luke tells us what happens next in the story. And it's incredible. All right, you ready? This is what it says. And as they went, they were cleansed. As they went, they were cleansed. Now, again, we don't know if this happened an hour down the road, 6 hours down the road. We don't know if they spent the night on their way because it was a long journey. The next morning, they wake up, they look down, their skin's cleared up, and they're like, are you kidding me? This is incredible. All right. We don't know exactly when this happened, but some amount of time went by, and as they were going, they were cleansed. Now, Jesus in the story, he just goes on into the village, right? Kind of like he's just doing his own deal. He goes on, and perhaps he had to stay the night too. He's on his way to Jerusalem. But the story says that at some point in this process, some point along the way, these 10 men realized that they were being or had been healed. And this is where the story begins to intersect and where the tension begins to happen with our topic of ingratitude and gratitude. Here's what Luke says. It goes on. It says, one of them, right? One of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back. So these guys are on their way to Jerusalem. They look down. All of a sudden, their bodies are changing. They're like, I'm being healed. And at this point, the 10 of them probably turned their walk into a sprint. They're like, we got to get to the priest. We got to get to the priest. But for some reason, this one guy, right? This one guy turns around. And again, we don't know if he had to go back hours. We don't know if he had to go back days. But one of them, when the group realized they were being healed or they had been healed, one of them stops, turns around, and comes back to Jesus. And you can imagine this scene, and Luke gets it right because he goes on. He says, he came back praising God in a loud voice, no doubt, right? Hey, Jesus, right? And he threw himself at Jesus' feet and he thanked him. And then Luke gives us this little side note, and he was a Samaritan. It's a great little extra note there. But I love this, right? And this is the reason we tell this story, especially to children, right? Because this guy went back to the one that he was so thankful for in life, for the impact they'd had on his life, for the things that he had done in his life, for actually, in this case, giving him his life back. And he took the time to just go back and say, thank you. And then this is where the fun begins. Because Jesus starts asking questions. And this takes us right into the tension with gratitude and ingratitude. And I really think when Jesus says this, I think he's kind of got a grin on his face because he maybe sees this as a teaching moment. Jesus knows, nothing surprised Jesus, right? Nothing caught him off guard, okay? And so he's got his disciples there, and I think he's like, teaching moment. And so Jesus asked the one, this is what he says. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? We're not all 10 of you cleansed, and I think maybe he's just being a little bit facetious, right? He's like, so now let me get this right. I sent all 10 of you, and so, and then but you came back. So did I just not put enough juice in it? Did the other 9 not get it? Did they outrun the miracle cloud? You know, what happened? Was there not enough right there? Because I think there were 10, but now there's just one. And he says, didn't I cleanse all 10? And then the next question he asked, which is the obvious question, is this. Where are the other 9? Where are the other 9? And with this, Jesus points out the tension that we already know. Because right here in the story, here's what happens. Even you and I, when we read this, we realize that there's something missing, right? There's something wrong with this picture. There's something incomplete. There's something open-ended. There's something unfinished. And the thing that's unfinished is the circle of gratitude. The circle of gratitude has not been completed. It's right there. There's been this incredible act done. And even one of the guys comes back, but he's like, but where are the other 9? And we're so close. And just finish the loop, complete the circle. And you feel this, right? And if you're not sure about the tension I'm talking about, let me paint you a picture of when you have experienced this, especially as adults, right? Because as adults, probably all of us have been to a kid birthday party. And you got little Billy over here, and you got little Susie over here, and little Susie gives Billy a gift. And Billy tears the gift open, and it's a football, right? And so Billy, he gets ready to tear the football out of the box, and he's ready to go play right now. And in that moment, the mom, Billy's mom, she realizes that there's something incomplete here. There's something unfinished. And so Billy's mom begins to ask Billy a question, and it's got 4 words. And she leans down to Billy, and she says this, what do you say? What do you say? What do you say, Billy? Because mom recognizes that there's something missing. There's something incomplete. The loop needs to be closed. And Jesus said it like this. Weren't there 10? Weren't there 10? But where's the other 9? And the mom's sitting here looking at Billy going, what do you say? Billy's just clueless, right? Billy's looking around at the ceiling. He doesn't know what's going on. What do you say? And finally, Billy goes, thank you. And mom's like, oh, yes, thank goodness. Okay, yes, thank you. Right, sigh of relief, loop closed, right? But we felt that tension as adults, haven't we? Right? We feel it, especially if it's our kid receiving the gift. Right? We're like, oh man, please say thank you. Right? Please just say thank you. Please have good manners. There's always this sense of panic, and we're like leaning in going, what do you say? What do you say? Complete the circle, finish the loop, right? And every single adult in that moment knows that if there's not an expression of gratitude, then something is missing and something's wrong. Here's what's interesting. We get this for our kids, and we get this for other people. But sometimes we miss this for ourselves. And sometimes it happens with the people that we really do appreciate, the people that we really do love, people that are investing time and energy in us that make our lives better. And somehow, sometimes we still miss this. And when a child doesn't say thank you, we panic. We almost flip out, right? But when it comes to us, sometimes we don't even realize that the circle's not been completed, that it's not been done, because life just goes on and we move on to the next thing. So then Luke finishes the story and Jesus says this. He says, "Has no one returned to give thanks for God?" And he takes a little jab, except this foreigner, right? He's taking a jab for any Jewish people who may hear that later. Any better than thou Jewish people. He's like, this is the only guy that came back was a Samaritan. What are you bunch of Jews doing, right? It's like, you're my people. Why ain't you back? Then he goes on. He said, "Rise and go." And I love this confirmation for this guy. He says, "It's your faith, your belief, your trust in me that has made you well." End of story. Now, when we look back and read this story, or if you've heard it other times, or maybe today you're hearing it for the first time through a new lens, if you read this story by yourself, our first reaction to Jesus' question, weren't there 10? Where's the other 9? Right? Our first reaction is probably, how ungrateful. I mean, can you believe these guys? How extraordinarily ungrateful. These guys just got their lives handed back to them. And they just, excuse me, and they just go on their merry way. What is the deal? But here's something to think about. We can't know this for sure, okay? Without my Jesus time machine. Okay, I'll ask when I get to heaven. But here's what I think, and I think you will too. Don't you think if we chase down those other 9 guys and we ask, hey, before you go into the priest, just real quick, because I remember seeing you guys on the edge of town and now you're here and you look great, but before you go into the priest, can I ask you a question? Are you grateful for what Jesus did for you? You know what I think they would say? I think they would go, oh man, are you kidding me? We are so grateful. Are you grateful? I wish there was a better word. I mean, we were outcasts. Now we're back in. We're about to show ourselves to the priest. I get to go see my family. I'm on the way to make, have dinner with my friends. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. He gave us our entire lives back. I'm naming my next 10 kids Jesus, male or female. It doesn't matter, right? Everybody's getting named Jesus. I am so grateful. All right. I really believe that they would say that. But meanwhile, back at the border, Jesus is going, weren't there 10? Where's the other 9? But these guys have no idea that there's an unfinished loop with someone that they would say they appreciate so much. It hasn't even dawned on them, right? But here it is. Here's our lesson today from the other 9, because a lot of us are suffering from the exact same dynamic that they were when it comes to gratitude. Are you ready? And here it is. The other 9, they felt it, but they didn't express it. They felt it. They just didn't express it. And that's the story for many of us. If you were to ask us about the people in our lives that are most important to us, and you were to say, do we feel grateful? We would say, are you kidding me? I am so grateful, right? I'm so grateful for him. I'm so grateful for her. I'm so grateful, especially spouses. I'm so grateful for my wife. I'm so grateful for my husband. They do so much and they're just amazing and they're incredible. And I can't even tell you, I can't put words around it. Or I've got this friend and they're just constantly giving and investing in me. They're amazing, right? We feel it. We feel it. But we just haven't expressed it. And what's so dangerous about that relationally is that a lot of times we've told everyone else how great we think these people are. Especially our spouses, man. I tell people all the time, my wife is incredible. She's the only one that brings credibility to our relationship. She's the only thing I got going for me, right? She's all I got, right? And it's real, right? What I feel is real, but sometimes it's just not expressed. And somewhere in all of our lives, possibly there's somebody saying, and they wouldn't put words on it like this, but maybe they're saying this: weren't there 10? Where are the other 9? And here's the bottom line, right? The principle that's currently impacting every single one of our relationships, and some of them most closest to us. Here's the hard part. Unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. Unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. The gratitude that you feel in your heart is real. And if we stopped you and asked you, you would just double down on how grateful you are. But when it's unexpressed, it communicates ingratitude. And I wish it stopped there, but it doesn't. It gets worse. Because unexpressed gratitude not only communicates ingratitude, but unexpressed gratitude is experienced as rejection. That's how they experience that, right? If you felt it but you didn't express it, it's experienced by the other party as rejection. Because not saying thank you actually communicates this: well, that's your job. You're supposed to do that, right? I mean, let's give marriages a break for a second. Parents, let's just talk to you. Right? You work to provide food, clothes, home, shelter. And whether it's a meal on the table during the week or that extra set of shoes for a sport or that extra trip that they want to do or whatever, right? And you do that, and all you're looking for is somebody to say, hey, thank you, right? But when that doesn't happen, you know what it feels like? That ingratitude feels like rejection. And maybe if we went to those people, they would say, no, I'm so thankful. But if it's left unexpressed, it communicates rejection. Unexpressed gratitude actually expresses entitlement, doesn't it? Like, yeah, I deserve this. You were supposed to do that for me. Of course. I mean, you do your part, I do my part, and that's what it is. Right? And for some of us, in the most key relationships of our lives, we are communicating ingratitude and rejection to the people that we would never dream of rejecting. And what we may not see or know until it's too late is it's actually driving their hearts away. It's driving their hearts away. If we have unexpressed gratitude, whether it's with our kids or our friends or our coworkers, but especially our spouses, we can drive their hearts right out of the relationship. And they may be there physically, but their hearts could be totally checked out. So, the question today is a simple one. As I'm saying all this to you, who comes to mind? Who are the people that you feel the most gratitude for in your life? But who are the people that maybe you've taken for granted? Who are the people that if I stopped and I asked you, are you grateful? You would be like, oh, I am so grateful, right? But maybe you haven't told them lately. And maybe it's just because it just hasn't crossed your mind. It's not intentional, right? But now you know this, that unexpressed gratitude communicates in gratitude. And unexpressed gratitude is experienced as rejection, and it's possibly driving the heart away of the person you care about the most, and you didn't even know it because ingratitude is almost impossible to see in the mirror in ourselves. But now that you do know it, here's the deal. With gratitude, it's not enough to feel it. It's not enough to feel it. You've got to express it. It's not enough to feel it. You've got to express it, right? And we're not going to all express it in the same way, and we're not going to all express it with the same energy or the same emotion, but that's not even the point. The point is this: have you figured out a way, and have you developed a habit, and have you taken the time, and have you dealt with your pride enough at this point that you are expressing gratitude consistently to the people that you care about the most? Because if you're not, unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. And at the end of the day, it's not enough to feel it. You've got to express it. And the call of this passage, right, from Jesus is simply for us to be like the one, to be the returner, to go back to the people that we feel so grateful for and just make sure that we are expressing it. Because if it's not expressed, it doesn't exist. Right? So who do you need to say thank you to today? Who comes to mind? Go ahead, you can think. As you leave here today, okay, we don't want to just leave you on your own on this, okay? And ladies, you'll be great at it, but men, I don't trust us. So somebody was like, no, you're right. Ladies all around the room were like, oh, I'm so glad he's here. Right, I'm so glad he came today. I'm so glad my children are in the room. Okay. So two things. I want us to do two things together. Okay, so here it is. First, when you leave today, so we're going to give you a head start. First, we did this. We got these little cards, okay? And I want you to take at least 2 of them. But all it does, on the front, it just says this: complete the circle. It just says complete the circle. Okay, and you can stick in your wallet, you can stick in your pocket, and you can keep one just to remind you, or you can use both of them for the intended purpose. But on the back, it just says this: I'm so grateful for you, and here's why. And it's got a bunch of lines, okay? And man, our hope is this, is that you would just take one of these, right? And you would fill that out for the person that you are so grateful for, but maybe you just haven't expressed it lately, right? We wanted to make sure that you had the tools to get the gratitude train going, all right? So we want to put these in your hand, and you would just use them person to person, student to parent, right? Friend to friend, coworker to boss, boss to employee, but especially husband to wife and wife to husband. That we would be people this week, okay? And again, you get a freebie. It's like, well, here we go, all right? And that you would take this, and you wouldn't just say it, because there's something powerful about, all right? And you don't get to send a text. No, I got that card, you remember? And so here's a text. Nope, you don't get to do that. No, write it, handwritten, your hand. You can't get one of your kids to do it, all right? Can't let the waitress at the Huddle House, hey, will you fill this out for me because I got some things I want to say? No, you, all right? I'm so grateful for you. And here, it's why, and that we would take the opportunity to express gratitude to the person or the people in our lives that we are grateful for the most. But I have one more challenge for you as we go today, and it's this. And I'm going to start with us men, okay? Specifically husbands. Today, in the parking lot, before you turn the key in the car, I want you to look at your wife in the eyes, and I just want you to say, thank you. And then I just want you to start listing all the reasons, because you're so amazing and awesome and incredible. And when you do this, then I love you, and you're so great with our kids, and you've been such a great, my best friend. I just want you to say thank you, and I just want you to start naming off the list. And now, before you push back, I know what you're thinking, because it's what I would be thinking too. You're thinking, I hear you, right? I hear you, Andrew, and I am grateful. But if I express gratitude today, she's going to say, you know this, the only reason you're saying that is because Andrew told you so. But guys, I'm telling you, ladies, I'm telling them, okay, guys, I'm telling you, she won't do that. Right, wives? There's no way she'll do that. She will be so grateful. She will be so, so thankful. So do not let your pride keep you from expressing gratitude today, because let me tell you the flip side of how this works. The person that you need to express gratitude to, if they're here and if they're listening, and if you don't, then it's going to sting even more. Right? And they're going to feel even more unappreciated. And so it's okay today to just say, hey, you know what? As Andrew was talking, I thought, wow, I've not expressed gratitude as much as I wanted to, okay? And so today, I just want to say thank you. Just own it, man. I promise they will absolutely appreciate it. Don't wait until you think somebody's going to think this is your idea. Because they know you, and they know it's never going to be your idea, because my wife knows it's never going to be mine. I had to get this from somebody else, right? But just do it, right? Just say thank you. Now, ladies, to you. Some of you have husbands who are incredibly supportive and thoughtful and helpful and loving and kind and your best friend and just amazing. Today, just take a minute and say, by the way, thank you for all you do. I love you. I'm so appreciative. And just list off the things that you're thankful for. And students in the room, you are part of the one of the most entitled generations in our history. But you can break the pattern. So today, say thank you to somebody, your parents, a teacher, a coach, and watch what happens when you complete the circle. Because gratitude, when expressed, generates more generosity, and that's good for all of us. And we should be great at this because it could be the difference in our relationships breaking through or breaking down. And here's what I know about every single one of us, right? You are so grateful for someone. You're so grateful for someone. We're all grateful for someone. The question is, have we expressed it? Because with gratitude, it's not enough to feel it. You've got to express it. So today, be like the one. Close the loop. Complete the circle. And I promise you, your most important relationships will thank you when you say thank you. I promise. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father,